Welcome to another edition of Selling St. Petersburg. I'm Alana Pinkerton here with Josh Naylor, our friend Jordan from Select Insurance Providers today. We are going to dive deep into insurance here in the state of Florida, which everybody, believe it or not, we did one little clip on YouTube Shorts of Josh talking about insurance. And it got the most views so far.
Everybody asks me about insurance, and I'm like, oh, let me get you with Jordan.
Yeah, absolutely.
It changes, and
so we're going to talk about homeowners insurance. We're going to talk about insuring condos, because that's where we are right now, and another great condo here in downtown St. Pete. I wanted to give everybody, our viewers, a different view. This is the city view. So if
under construction too.
We have a lot under construction, which is it's kind of fun. It kind of keeps.
The trop from here?
Yes, you can see the trop.
New roof going up.
New roof going up on the trop.
You got the Skyway Bridge right there.
Skyway Bridge. We have the marina. We have the airport over here, so we can see just about everything. So the city views, I think, are great because they're just kind of seems like the city is alive. We're going to talk about mortgages, but definitely the homeowners insurance, flood insurance. What first-time home buyers need to think about when they're talking about insurance. So, but first, we go over to Josh for the latest news about mortgages.
All right, yeah. So today was an interesting day with PPI, and the numbers came in a little bit hotter than expected, but this is kind of the cousin of CPI.
Consumer Price Index.
Correct. Yes. So it's not as heavily weighted. There's still some sticky inflation out there. There really is. But then, a lot of just getting absorbed by, I would say, corporations. 10-year went down a little bit, but it bounced up a little bit. They were really, before this happened today, they were really considering what a 50 BIP or half a point decrease would look like in September and seeing how likely that would be. And we were kind of leaning towards it up until the report that we got today. I still think we are headed towards a cut. I would say a quarter cut by September. We're really already feeling it in the 10-year. The market really starts absorbing that before it even happens. And then we get the cup and it cut, and then it's already kind of priced in.
Yeah, I was on, I'm on too many social media platforms, but people were kind of arguing, is it the right time to buy? Is it the right time to sell? And no matter what's going on in the economy, it's an individual thing. If you're ready to buy, we say buy. If you're ready to sell, sell. If you're ready to sit tight and don't do anything, then don't do anything. We need to take a look at your situation, your own personal situation. So that's what we always say.
And even that being said, I'm buying a few properties this year because I think it's a great opportunity because we keep talking about it. As soon as rates do start coming down, especially decently amount,
right?
I mean, you're going to bring a flood of new buyers in. And I think a lot of people are just sitting on properties waiting for rates to come down so that they can get into, they're just kind of gelled into their current property.
They bought something at 2% interest.
Right. And those 2% are not going to happen anymore. And like, God forbid we have another, pandemic, but that was the only reason why those came down way down. If you look at the trends over the past, 20 years, things were not dropping.
No, we've never been that low. And now we're, trying to make up for it. I do say rates stayed a little bit lower for longer than they should have. That's where pricing just really elevated. But now we're kind of paying for it. We've had 2 years of really restrictive rates. We're kind of coming into the other side of that. I think they'll start pulling and sparking deals with the tariffs and everything. Everything is kind of pointing to where it's really going to spark the market. That's what I think.
Okay, you heard it here first. So I better edit this and get this posted today.
I'm telling you.
so we stay current. So. Well, let's talk about the other elephant in the room. People talk about not coming down to Florida because, insurance is so expensive. And that's the biggest complaint I hear. So Jordan is our expert from Select Insurance Providers. So he's our go-to guy. He hears from us all the time. And so we really rely on you to really help guide the client and get them the best price. And I will have to say they are an honest group because when I gave your brother my auto insurance quote, he's like, Alana, I can't do better than that. So they're honest too. So I really like that about you guys. So first question, and you can come up with questions too. I'm
sure I can think of
everyone
something.
thinks it's hard to get insurance in Florida.
Okay.
Is it hard?
No. Well, everybody. maybe
That's kind of a
maybe
loaded
one.
question.
Right.
It depends.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially some of these deals out there.
Well, that was my next question.
Right.
It's really
we,
expensive.
we can
I-
contest. We've got a few.
Yeah, I think
Interesting
it comes down
deals
to,
here and there.
When people are buying homes, a lot of times they get an inspection report. So when you buy a house, you get a 4-point inspection, a wind mitigation report, and there's a lot of things that need to be updated.
Talk to them about
So,
4-point
yeah.
and kind of what that means.
Sure.
And especially if you're moving from out of state. And,
Yeah.
I'm originally from Oklahoma. And when I
Right.
started hearing 4-point, I was like, what is
4-point wind
4-point?
mitigation.
Yeah,
What are we
yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're looking at the roof. That's the main concern with most insurance companies. We're looking at the HVAC. We're looking at the electric and the plumbing. Those are the 4 points of concern. And the inspector comes in, looks at each individually, and they have to check satisfactory on each box, or else the insurance company will not extend coverage.
Okay.
And that's where it becomes difficult because, as a realtor, who's paying for this?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And that's where things get tricky and sometimes deals fall apart. Maybe people say it's hard to get insurance just because no one can figure out who's going to pay for that repair,
Right.
which is needed to insure the home,
Right.
if that makes
So
sense.
I say if you're a realtor and you've got a good listing, you
Mhm.
might want to just go ahead and take care of that
Absolutely.
4-point inspection
Well,
before you put
to
it on the
that
market.
too,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a double-edged sword because yes, those are things of concern, but if you think about it, those are the most important things you want taken care of.
For
So it's
sure.
really in everybody's best
Yeah.
interest.
Right.
Maybe not on the seller side, but it's going to be yours on your side of buying a house. You
Yeah.
want to make sure these 4 things are taken care of.
Yeah.
And that's what your insurance is interested
For
in.
sure. And I think one of the biggest things we see right now is with roofs. So people get a new roof and the person who installs the roof said this is good for 50 years.
Right.
Well, the insurance companies don't see it that way.
No.
Usually they'll extend maybe 25 years total. And when the inspection comes back and it shows less than 5 years of remaining life, the insurance company will not insure it.
What if it had roof max put on it?
So that's one thing. A lot of these roofers have the sealants
Right.
or the extra layer they can put on top. And that's something that when they coordinate with an inspector who understands what they're doing, they may extend it
Okay.
additional life.
All right.
Right? It's not something that we can determine on our side. It's always up to the inspector.
Right. I'm pretty sure my brother said his insurance company would not honor that.
Yeah.
So
And that's the thing is if they first get the report and it says that it doesn't have enough satisfactory life, it says for 3 years, whatever it says, and then you put that coating on, the insurance company may not like it.
okay.
Yeah.
Right? If you do it pre-inspection,
You're right.
right, and then it shows
Proactive, not
Exactly.
reactive.
Right, yeah. Yes.
exactly,
Yeah.
right, then they're not seeing both sides of the report.
Exactly. Exactly.
And,
Okay.
and to that, if you don't
Okay.
mind,
I don't mind.
it's very important to have a good inspector too.
Yeah.
That's another thing, because these things are going to come up, and it's going to be having that relationship with your inspector that's
Right.
going to help you move forward in the process of buying that
Absolutely.
home.
Well, I think a lot of buyers get alarmed when they see unsatisfactory,
Right.
and it may not be a difficult fix.
Okay.
Right. Sometimes it's just a
Just
leaky
needs to be
faucet
addressed one way
or
or the other.
an outlet that needs to be repaired. But they see unsatisfactory, they think this house may burn down,
Okay.
it may fall apart. But if you have good resources on the trade side, you have good electricians in
Right.
the back pocket, they can help your buyers.
And that's
easy fixes a lot of
right.
times.
And that's what a good realtor should have
That's right.
is those resources for you so you don't have to go searching around. And
Yeah.
so I'm lucky enough to have these resources around me.
For
So
sure.
that makes great. Okay, so we're sitting in a beautiful condo
Yeah.
overlooking the city. We're in
Yeah.
Salt Air, a beautiful 2-bedroom with a den, 2.5 bath. It's 1,668 square feet. What kind of insurance does a homeowner need on a condo?
Yeah. Good question. So these
That's a
are
great
honestly our
question.
favorite to write because they're
Yeah.
they're so straightforward for both the consumer and for us as the insurance agency. So the condo HOA as a whole is going to cover the entire exterior and the roof.
Okay.
So essentially you're buying what's called an HO6 policy for condos specifically where you're covering the studs in, right? So you have, all of your electric and your plumbing and your appliances and your kitchen, that's all covered by you. But the most expensive things for people to insure typically is the exterior and the roof, which
Right.
you don't have to pay for. So condo insurance tends to be extremely affordable. And I'll say on the realtor side, a lot of times people see HOA cost
Right.
and they think it's high, but they're covering
This
your
is a big building. This is a big
Exactly.
building.
They're covering your insurance cost.
with a lot of amenities too, and the insurance costs. Well, let
Right.
me ask you though. So
Yeah.
during Milton,
Sure.
so we have the weeping holes here on the patio, right? Because the rain was coming in so fast and so hard,
Yeah.
there was nowhere for water to go. So it did come in to
Did it?
not on this side, but on the northeast end,
wow,
it came just a little, I mean,
Yeah.
like to that rug. So,
Sure.
maybe 3 feet in, and not like a ton, but enough that, some homeowners.
it's a headache. Yeah,
Yeah, I guess it was just a headache, but let's say it damaged the tile.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how it could have.
yeah.
but-
Usually
but-
not the tile. Usually
Yeah.
the drywall.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say,
contents,
yeah. So,
More so.
does your insurance cover you
Yeah.
for that?
Yeah, great question. So there's a big difference between flooding,
Okay.
right, and wind-driven rain,
Okay.
right? So
All right.
if water's coming into the home due to a hurricane through wind, that will be covered by the homeowner's insurance.
Okay. So homeowners for a condo, but what about
Yep.
a single family home?
It's same thing. Yeah, same thing. As long as if the damage is coming from the wind-driven rain,
Okay.
then the homeowner's insurance will cover it.
Okay.
If it's coming from water coming up from flooding,
Okay.
then it's going to fall on the flood insurance, and homeowner's insurance will not cover it
Okay.
at all.
So they have to really make sure what kind of zone they're in. But does
Yeah.
the insurance company, make sure that they're looking at all of that? Like, hey, you're in flood, you're in a flood zone, or maybe you're next to a flood zone. Do you go in and say, hey, you might, just in case?
Yeah, well, get flood insurance?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. These days, we recommend flood insurance in every zone.
Yeah.
Right?
And you can get it really cheap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it'll cover your contents in case of anything. I mean, it really
Absolutely.
does. Yeah.
We saw during the hurricane people flood that were not in required flood zones,
Right.
The storm drains backed up, things of that nature, and water comes into the home, and they think it's covered on their homeowner's insurance, and it's not.
Yeah.
So we recommend getting flood insurance on every home. It's not, like you said, it's very reasonably priced if
Yeah.
you're not in a mandatory
Right.
required flood area.
Could
like
you
an
give us
AE.
an example of what a cost for one that's
Yeah.
out of?
Yeah, and it all depends on how much you're insuring it for.
Sure.
Right. So the big thing is when you're in an AE flood zone, for example, there's really only one option. Flood insurance, you have private flood carriers, and then you have something called NFIP, National Flood Insurance Program. National Flood Insurance Program can be confusing because it's written on all different paper.
Okay.
You may see it by Progressive, or you might see it by Right Flood. You might see it by Bankers, but what you're looking for at the top is those letters, NFIP. If you see those, it's backed by FEMA.
Okay.
All right. And in the AE flood zones, that's essentially, for the most part, at a reasonable price, all you can get, unless your home is elevated.
Right.
Right. So you don't have a lot of options. But if you're not in AE flood zone and you have access to the private market, it's very affordable, and the coverage options are you can tailor them to your needs a lot better. So, when you have an NFIP policy, your contents are essentially covered at cash value, right? What does it cost
Right.
now to replace it for what it's worth at the moment, not what you bought it for or what it
Okay.
would cost to replace it, right? When you get a private flood carrier, you can pick and choose how you want to structure that coverage. You can cover your pool where you can't with an NFIP policy. And I would say we recently did one in an X flood zone. It was they asked for $150,000 in building coverage, right, which is going to be your walls, your actual structure, and then contents is basically if you flip the home over, what would fall out.
Okay.
Right?
That's a great
Easiest way to
example.
describe it, right?
Yeah.
And they had about $50,000 in contents, and this was only about a $750 premium for the year,
Okay.
Wow.
right? Where
That's
that
pretty
same
good.
coverage in an AE flood zone is
Yeah.
going to be
It's like
drastically
$60
higher.
a month.
And you also see when people are dealing with lenders, right, and they have financing on their home, a lot of times they're required to maximize that flood coverage up to $250,000. When in reality, they might have a 1,000 square foot home where it wouldn't really cost
Right.
that to repair, but they're required to carry it.
Yeah.
Right.
So insurance, I look at it as an investment. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we need insurance for so many things. You have medical insurance just in case. I'm getting ready to take a big trip internationally.
Yeah,
I took out
insurance.
travel insurance, medical travel insurance, just in case. I mean, my husband was looking at me like I was
Sure.
ridiculous, but I'm like,
No, I do the same thing.
I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable on this trip. And
You want to insure your asset.
exactly.
That's where your
Right.
Is my
money's
husband
lying.
my asset?
That's for you to determine.
He is for sure. So if we're
Yeah.
talking about, we normally don't talk about first-time home buyers, but
Yeah.
what should they be aware of when they're buying single-family homes or townhomes in Florida? Or
Yeah. Well, as Josh mentioned earlier, cost has been very prohibitive for many first-time home buyers. And, one thing that the language in loans is debt-to-income ratio, right? And we have to make sure that the insurance can fit in with what they can pay monthly for their mortgage as well, right?
Okay.
So what we don't like to see is where we have to cut coverage in order for it to fit the loan. So it's a conversation to be had with your lender as well to figure out where you're at and what you can insure it for to make sure that that asset that you're buying is protected if something does happen.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say first-time home buyers don't. Every time we get these calls, they don't know anything about
Right.
the insurance.
They're like
What
deer
is
in the
the-
headlights.
What's the hurricane deductible? What is
Yeah.
this all other perils, right? And there's a lot of different nuances of these policies, but the main things we see that are of concern in Florida specifically is your hurricane deductible, right, and your all other perils, so anything besides a hurricane.
Okay.
And you have really two choices when you're financing. It's 2% hurricane deductible and 5%.
Mhm.
Now that percentage is based on what the home is valued at on the insurance paper, right? So if it's valued at $100,000 and you have a 5% hurricane deductible, right? Josh, math?
Yep.
$5,000, right?
5,000.
So if something happens hurricane related, that's essentially what you have to come out of pocket before the coverage kicks in, right? 2%, $2,000. So as those homes get more expensive, obviously that deductible gets higher. So if you're looking at a 5% hurricane deductible on a more expensive home, and say something happens to the roof, right? Sometimes you're looking at an expense where you're almost fully out of pocket. So we always like to inform our first-time home buyers of what that looks like, because you certainly would rather be at 2%, right? But if you're insuring a structure than 5%.
Right, exactly. And so as we always mention on our podcast, it's great to, before you get ready to go buy that first home, get set up with Josh, let him go over all your financial situation so he gets your credit right and buys down the rate, and then you have that little extra money to do the right investment with insurance.
I'll say this too. Me and Jordan, we talk through deals quite often, because it can come to that. And DTI, debt to income, it can be very important. We can be really close,
right?
And then we need to kind of cut down the insurance for the time being, but you can go back and reinstall or reset up your policy and have more coverage. We just need to satisfy the debt income.
These are conversations you got to have with the clients so they're on the same page. And I'll say to Josh's credit, is that usually what we're looking at is these insurance rates previous to even the offer going in on the home, right? Just to make sure it's worth everybody's time. We don't want to go through the inspection period when we know more than likely.
And that's what I love using. That's why I love using Jordan, is because there's a lot of times I'll come up to a property, I'm like, oh man, what's this insurance look like? And it could be a first time home buyer, and I'm like, man, that might be a big hit, or we really at least need to see it and look at it and make sure that's an option for them.
Sure.
And I'll reach out to them in less than 2 hours. I'll have a quote, and we'll know exactly what we're looking at, so I know how to structure it and where this buyer will lie.
Let's talk about the service that you provide. Like, you turn things around very, very quickly. What makes you stand out besides what's your tagline?
Insurance sucks. We just make it suck a little bit less.
I love that tagline. I love that tagline.
That's great.
Well, I think if you poll the average person in the community, the biggest complaint they have with their agent or their insurance company is response times. Right. They're looking at usually 3 to 5 days before they get an answer back, when in our world now everybody wants information right now.
Right.
And so we've developed that mantra within our agency: 3 to 5 business hours for a response. If Josh emails at 9 p.m., we're going to get back to him the next day.
Right.
But it's going to be first thing in the morning.
Okay.
And, it's just, everybody needs answers now, especially when you're dealing with real estate transactions. Like, we need to know what we can do, what we can't do, and if things work or they don't.
And that's what's important is, you got to know where you're at, where you need to be, and what it looks like moving forward. This person wants to make an offer, but we're tied on DTI. Is flood insurance really going to kill this deal? It very well could.
It could, and this is where having a great realtor comes into play too, because if you're purchasing a home in an AE flood zone, which there's a lot of great deals to be had there right now, right? So it's a great look for a first time home buyer, but the concern is always going to be, what's the flood insurance cost? If the current homeowner has one of those NFIP policies we talked about earlier, the new buyer inherits a discounted rate.
Nice.
Now, what you need though, you need that current homeowner's policy number. You need a copy of it. You need to have the NFIP policy number to now upload into the new one. So having a great realtor who understands that and is being proactive in getting that can really help the next buyer. When you don't have that, you see heavy hikes on the rate. Heavy hikes, and it makes a massive difference.
And that's typically my first question. I'll ask a lot. I said, all right, so do we have a flood insurance policy here that we can piggyback off of?
And it comes on both sides: your buyer's agent, your seller's agent, making sure that those two people are professionals in coordinating that, because it's gonna impact the sale. It's hard for somebody to sell a house sometimes when the new buyer is inheriting a rate that's prohibitive, and then the buyer is obviously trying to get their homeowner in, and they can't sometimes fit that DTI if they don't inherit a discounted rate.
Well, all good information. I hope you guys find it very valuable. It is starting to get hot out here on the patio, so I think you've provided a lot of great information. I had a dumb question about, is there ever a reason to forego insurance?
Well, I would say that if you're in a position where you own your house outright, and you feel comfortable with that. It's all risk tolerance.
Right.
That's all it is. It's risk tolerance.
Can I also tell you this?
Yeah.
I flooded here recently, and I know exactly how much I pay in insurance, how much I pay in flood.
Yeah.
I'm a numbers guy. I'm a finance guy. I did the numbers, and if I were to put that money into like 401k or a Roth, it depends on if you end up having to use it.
Right.
Sure.
But you could be creative in a lot of ways. But I mean, it just depends.
It's all risk tolerance. I mean, the
risk
key
tolerance is
you,
key.
you have to own your home, right? If you have any kind of financing out there,
outside of that, there's no other options. You
Right.
have to insure that because there's a loan and there's
Yeah.
somebody else attached to it, and they want to make sure that asset is being insured and protected.
Yeah, if you've got high risk tolerance, you've got finances in the bank to support it. You're like, Josh, I feel like I could invest this money. Then maybe it makes sense for you. I would say the average person that owns their home, it's far better to have the insurance
Absolutely.
than not, though.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, like I said, it is starting to get toasty back on my backside. It's
Yeah. Josh is perfectly.
I feel
shaded over
great.
here.
He's fine.
You put me in the hot seat.
I put you
as
in
the
the hot
guest over
seat.
here. I am
Absolutely.
melted.
Well, we really appreciate you being our guest. All of our contact information is going to be down below in the description. As always, we really appreciate you listening. Please subscribe. Please like, share, comment. It helps, boost this podcast out there for other people to learn more. And we will bring you another edition here next week. So stay tuned and have a great day.
Thank you.